Monster Hunter is a game series that is both published and developed by the Japanese game company Capcom, and was started in the year 2004, being released on the PlayStation 2. The flagship title for Monster Hunter was aptly named Monster Hunter and was released to moderate fanfare and had high market success, mostly just in its country of origin, Japan. It sold around 315,000 copies in its first year as a series, which is nothing to scoff at, especially in 2004. Monster Hunter was far from Capcom's biggest success around this time, however, with both Resident Evil and Street Fighter being world-renowned titles, as they are still to this day. In 2005, Monster Hunter was released in Europe alongside Monster Hunter G and Monster Hunter Freedom, and the sales ballooned, going from 315,000 total sales in the first year to a whopping 1.5 million in the series' second year alone. This gave Capcom the full green light to start focusing on Monster Hunter as one of its main series, with the game becoming somewhat iconic in its home country of Japan. With essentially every single fight in MH being a boss fight, players were experiencing something never experienced before in video games: non-stop action, only boss enemies essentially, and a combat that allowed you to travel along in a somewhat open world. It made a lot of sense why this game had blown up in Japan. Now Capcom, being completely aware of the potential of the series, they began grinding new Monster Hunter games relentlessly. In 2006, Monster Hunter 2 was released. In 2007, Monster Hunter Freedom 2 was released, and in 2008, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite was released. These three games were considered the second generation of Monster Hunter, and over those 3 years that they were released, the series sold 6.5 million copies, more than tripling the game's first generation sales. All three that were a part of the Generation 2 were only released on the PlayStation 2, just like how every game in the first generation was released on the PlayStation 2 as well, which at this point was known as basically the JRPG console. Once again, Monster Hunter had reached both critical and market success in its home country of Japan. However, it had yet to break open North American or European markets. Instead of Capcom being disappointed in the series' inability to fully appeal to Western audiences, such as their Street Fighter and Resident Evil had already done, they were excited because even without those audience, Monster Hunter had turned into their second best-selling title in the 2000s, completely overtaking the legendary fighting game Street Fighter at this point in terms of sales. This meant that Monster Hunter's potential was unmatched, and because of this, Capcom continued their relentless grind of constantly releasing Monster Hunter games over the coming years. Knowing that Monster Hunter was on the brink of worldwide success, Capcom began producing their most ambitious project since the first game in the series. All new monsters, brand new maps, an iconic multiplayer mode and hub, and their strongest story yet. Not to mention the marketing push for Monster Hunter Tri was their biggest yet. Everything was set and primed for Monster Hunter Tri to take the world by storm. However, there was just one small problem. The PlayStation 3 was a difficult console to work with, and Capcom didn't want to spend the money or the time to properly learn how to develop a game effectively for the PlayStation. So, for the first time in the history of the series, Monster Hunter completely abandoned the Sony console and moved to different pastures. This was a dangerous move. Their entire audience until this point has literally just been with people who own PlayStations, and the series was 6 games in with well over 10 million total sales. However, even with the possible danger of abandoning the PlayStation brand, Capcom decided to jump ship to possibly the most popular gaming console of all time.
You want a revolution? Well, we've got one. This is a Nintendo Revolution prototype we have with us for meetings this week in Los Angeles. Clearly, Revolution is by far the smallest console we've ever manufactured. Finally, I'd like to give you one full answer to a piece of the Revolution puzzle I have talked about previously: backward compatibility.
This turned out to be a great decision. The Wii's extreme worldwide popularity helped open up Monster Hunter to a market that had barely ever touched before: the West. Upon release in 2009, Monster Hunter Tri became the best-selling third-party game in Japan and sold about 2 million copies worldwide. the best start for any new generation of Monster Hunter yet. In 2010, the portable third dropped, which was another huge step for the Monster Hunter franchise. For the first time ever, Monster Hunter was now available on both home and portable consoles, with the portable third being released on the PSP, and then Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate being released on the 3DS. Monster Hunter being on 3 different consoles led to the third generation having the highest sales yet, with over 9 million copies sold.
Everyone, this is Nintendo 3DS.
However, the extreme success of the series on portable devices led to Capcom making an interesting choice. Monster Hunter Generation 4 was only released on the 3DS and led to a little over 8 million copies being sold, the first time in the series' history that a new generation didn't exceed last generation's sales. However, 8 million copies on only one console was still extremely impressive, and Capcom was content with this, especially with how much lower production costs were preparing a game for only a portable release. Then Monster Hunter Generations was released, the next step in the Monster Hunter franchise, also to only portable devices. Initially being released on the 3DS and then eventually having the Ultimate version sold on Switch. Both of these versions would eventually combine to sell around 9 million copies, still unable to reach the ultimate success that Monster Hunter Tri had reached 6 years prior. Monster Hunter's growth had stagnated at this point. 3 separate titles straight had sold around the same amount, and what seemed as such a meteoric rise had been stopped. 9 million sales is nothing to be disappointed in, but the stagnated growth certainly is. My theory for this is that Monster Hunter is primarily a game targeted for older audiences, while portable consoles are typically owned by children, meaning that they got the wrong conclusion out of the Generation 3 success. It wasn't that Monster Hunter would be more successful portable only, but they had finally broke into Western audiences and achieved worldwide success, meaning that the series was primed to blow up the next time they released a game on a console widely owned by their targeted age range. However, with the release of Monster Hunter Stories in 2016, they did the opposite of that, making a game both meant for children and only portable. Monster Hunter Stories sold only 300,000 copies, the worst selling game in the series to date. After Stories released, it had now been 8 years since the home console team of Monster Hunter had released the game. It appeared only the portable team was getting work, and that the demonic pace the console team was originally working with had disappeared. In 2014, with no new game to work on since Monster Hunter Tri in 2009, the console team was fed a bone by Capcom. They were tasked with beginning the development for what would become the most legendary game, critically and economically, in Capcom history. In 2014, development for Monster Hunter World had begun. Monster Hunter World is the most accurate title Capcom could have picked, with the game being Monster Hunter's first taste of becoming world-renowned, as well as being available on every major home console: the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, and for the first time ever, PC. Monster Hunter World was not only the most widely available Capcom game, console-wise, but was also pushed by the marketing team harder than any previous title, and received more localization efforts than ever before. Along with the game being graphically beautiful, extremely well polished, and a lot of the more meticulous parts of the older games being streamlined, Monster Hunter World was primed to catch the world on fire. And it did. Monster Hunter World would go on to sell 22.5 million copies, with the DLC Iceborne adding another 10 million copies, meaning that Generation 5 of Monster Hunter had sold a total of 32 million games, more than tripling their last generation sales. Monster Hunter World was not only commercially successful, however, but also won RPG of the Year at the Game Awards in 2016. The 5th generation of Monster Hunter had caught the world on fire, and Monster Hunter had officially taken over the world. So that's the end of the script, guys. I hope you thought it was an interesting video. It has been Game Fanatic Cook. Please like and subscribe. This is getting back to the scripted Monster Hunter content. This is my first script in a while. I didn't read it perfectly, as you guys could tell, but I was doing my best. Anyway, so I have here a list for Capcom's best-selling games. Okay, I just want to give you this list because I think it's interesting. I think it's fun, especially when Capcom has game series like Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, and Street Fighter. Capcom's best-selling game ever, as you guys can probably guess, is Monster Hunter World. Second best-selling game ever is Monster Hunter Rise. Third, Resident Evil 2. Fourth, Resident Evil 7. And fifth is Monster Hunter Iceborne. So as you guys can tell, Monster Hunter has essentially became Capcom's cash cow. I'm happy for it because I'm a huge Monster Hunter fan. Never played Resident Evil, so whatever. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys stay blessed and all that good stuff. And peace out.